with them, basically. So, yeah, good point. Oh, okay. One from the back there.
Yeah, I'd like to echo George's comments. I think you're doing a terrific job, and I think this is a really interesting document. There are a couple of concerns that I've got. I'm not entirely sold on the connection between productivity and biodiversity.
Okay.
I think that it works to a certain extent, and I can see where you're coming from and how to bring people on board to improve certain sites. One of the things that I believe to be fundamentally important about the Wrekin is that a lot of its value has been achieved through benign neglect. That there are places that deserve no management plan at all, and that ought to be its management. And I think that these are larger rather than smaller, and it worries me that we get an overarching plan which then touches has to touch everything. And I think there's a really good reason, and part of that is also to do with some of my concerns about the mandate for the plan. All this started because local people were very worried that the Wrekin would be bought by somebody who was unsympathetic to it. And one of the things that we as a group, and I'm not speaking for anybody else because there's lots of different views, but one of the things that we felt as a group was that we wanted to protect the Wrekin to prevent change other than natural processes. What we admired, what we felt of greatest value, apart from all the other values, was that it was a place where, especially the bit that was being sold, where natural processes predominated, and that's what we wanted to protect for the future. Now that kind of influences the mandate of the trust. Everybody was happy that the trust was going to try and buy it, and was sympathetic to the interests of those people who were concerned about it. The same mandate doesn't necessarily follow that it should be managed. Do you see what I mean? I'm not trying to say that there ought not to be a management plan, but that the same principles don't apply to everything. It is what's important, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, to give you an example, for me, from a Woodland point of view, the Norton Estate end, the north end of Wrekin, is considerably more interesting and valuable than the other end, in one sense, in terms of biodiversity values, in terms of the interest of the trees, the species, the distribution, the history. But it is so because it is benignly managed. It's not over-managed. But what we needed to do was, because there's a heavy public use of the site, is support Peter to institute duty of care works. So if there's dangerous trees beside the path, what I've noticed is, unfortunately, is that trees have been felled and left. And part of a healthy woodland system is it has lots of deadwood in it. So by those safety works, we have this deadwood bonus. And I think that's a byproduct that we were looking for. But any further management of the hill, you need to be very careful, because some of the sites that I've seen, I personally value the most over the last 12 months, are those that are tumbled down, like the lost houses. I think they're absolutely superb, those spots, because they're lost, and they don't need to be tidied up and managed, because their value lies in the fact they've fallen down.
And I guess what worries me is that we live in a managerial culture, where everything is managed. Everything is managed to death, and it would be great, to hang on to those places that are hardly managed at all.
I think it's one of, if you look at let's say littering, for example, is we can let natural littering occur, so dead branches, limbs, little scrubby patches of grass. But it tends to be spoilt by human carelessness. So one of those, if we look at management, let's say we look at sort of the countryside ranger notion, is control those human interventions that we don't want, that we don't desire.
No, that's what I think. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
With, you know, those.
But I think
things
that
are
certainly in terms of a management prescription, that the term minimum intervention is one that we should be able to stamp on quite a lot of the area.
I think that's very important, actually. But if I could just move on to get one or two other views.
Sure.
It's very important to have that minimalism. Yes.
Within the last few days, I've seen a recent plan from the Land Registry of the south side of the Wrekin, and the circle of the map that we drew in the red. Leighton Estates have sold 80% of their land to an investment company, so the word used was unsympathetic user. Now, an investment company it's very poor quality land for farming, so an investment company would look to invest, and we're thinking it's going to be houses, and it's possibly 20% of your inside the red circle on the south side of the Wrekin, all the way down to Leighton. The good land is down by the river and over the river in Shinton, but that's not been sold. But it's all the way from the reservoirs, and there's one patch of woodland near Morrel's Wood that's not in the drawing, but it's everything in yellow, and it's massive. And it's been sold within the last few days.
Right, okay.
And I've seen the Land Registry official document.
Thank
So
you for
that's
that. That's obviously something that
I wasn't aware of that.
We've got to be aware of.
Yeah. And the owner of the estate, Malcolm Coral, is currently away.
He's home.
He's home.
He made it, yeah.
Right, okay.
And his fire engine.
I'll follow that up then. Thank you very much. That's great.
Are there any more just brief observations before I hand over to Rob? Yes.
One question. If you found a site for the forest school, how far would it take to get off the ground? If you actually found the site from the start?
Not long at all. We've got trained forest school leaders that work for the trust.
Oh.
So there's a certain set of criteria based around child protection. No public footpaths, within about 100 metres of parking place. There's a few other bits, but they're the main ones. So there's child protection, so the children are safe in that environment, they can explore.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't take long at all. They made a number of approaches, but we couldn't meet all the criteria.
No.
In moving on to Rob, what I just would like to say, just to close this a little bit and we can come back to it, what I think is really nice about what Pete's done is there's a series of initiatives. I don't see an overarching thing that say the Wrekin should be like this or the Wrekin Forest should be like that. It's supporting a whole lot of things that can go on and that are going on. And I would like to see the fact that it doesn't sort of just end here, if you like, because there are all sorts of projects which appear in 2 or 3 years' time, like the restoration of certain pools or certain pieces of woodland and things, which aren't necessarily captured at a point in time when you're doing a study. And that part of the sort of fertility, I think, of this thing should be that a plan involves almost a provision for things to come forward and to say that, look, there would be support and assistance to groups that wanted to develop things within the keeping of this Wrekin Forest area. Because I think a lot of things will come forward, Pete, as a result of what you've done, that we ought to say we don't know what they are at the moment, but they would be really valuable. So, sorry, Rob, having got my little say in there.